Hello, beloved. Happy 2022. I hope that as you move into this new cycle of the new year, that you are doing so with grace and joy and optimism and a lot of love. And if you're not, that's okay. And hopefully today's podcast will help to bring in some of that energy for you as you move into this new year. So today's episode is going to focus on cycles such as the one that we're moving into. And we're moving from one cycle of being in 2021 in that year into another cycle of being in 2022. And what I've noticed about coming to the end of 2021 is that there's like a lot of anxiety. Like people have been experiencing a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, a lot of inner turmoil, a lot of anxiety, and moving into the new year, a lot of energy to make the new year different. And I think that what it might feel like for some people, and it has certainly felt like this for me, is that the moment the clock strikes midnight from December 31st to January 1st on the next year, once we hit midnight and a second past midnight, it's almost as though we have entered into this new realm. It's like we walked through this magical door and everything just needs to be different, right? It's like we have turned a new chapter, not just a new page, like we've turned a whole new chapter in our story, and everything needs to be new and shiny and so much better and different, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And the pressure that comes from entering into this new realm, into this new world where everything has to be shiny and new and better and different, right? So let me start with talking about cycles. Okay, so this year ending 2021, that was a cycle, right? Beginning 2022, this is a new cycle that we're beginning. However, there are other cycles, there are other models for cycles, right? There are other models for transitions into new spaces, right? So one example is that the Chinese New Year is on February 1st. This is a different system. The Mayan calendar is in a different system, right? So their cycles are calculated in a different way, right? There are other cycles that we have access to and can follow. For example, there's a lunar cycle. So every month there is a new moon where you can set intentions for the month. You can get clear on what it is that you want to create. And there's a full moon where you allow yourself to reflect on the past cycle, right? And release what no longer serves you, right? There is also the solstices that happened around June 21st and December 21st. The solstices can also be considered as cycles, right? And of course, the seasons are cycles. We move through winter, spring, summer, and fall. These are all cycles. And the reason why I want to start there is because you can decide what cycle best supports your rhythm. You can decide what cycle best supports your life and where you are on your journey, right? So, the new year beginning, it being January 1st, whenever you're listening to this, the first week of January, the first couple of days, even several months after, whenever you're listening to this episode, you get to decide how much attention you pay to this cycle that is followed in the Western world and in other parts of the world, or if there are actually other cycles that support your own energy and your own rhythm, right? And I'm sharing this because this is the first time in my life, of all the years that I have been walking this planet, this is the first time in my life that I have decided not to become attached to this cycle of this new year. And there is so much freedom that comes with that. Even as I say that, like my shoulders just dropped, right? There is so much freedom that comes with deciding, okay, I recognize that this is a new year. I recognize that my calendar is going to change from December 31st to the lovely new calendar that I bought to January 1st. But I also recognize that I don't have to solve all of the things on January 1st or even in that first week of January. I don't have to make all the decisions, and I don't have to use that week to decide how my entire year will go. I can take my time. I can take my time because this is the reality of it. Every single moment has with it the opportunity for you to begin again. Every moment, every single moment has an opportunity for you to begin again. Every day has it, and also every moment, right? So you can wake up to the start of a new day and decide that, oh crap, yesterday, I wasn't my best self. Some things happened yesterday that I wasn't proud of. But today, I'm going to start to make some healthier choices that are going to serve me. Right? You can do that from day to day. You can do that from moment to moment, right? Like mid sentence, you can start to say something and realize that it doesn't serve you, and you can actually stop and choose to say something else. You can make a different choice, right? You get to do that every moment, every day, every week, every month, every 3 months. I personally love the cycle of the seasons, and I haven't been setting new intentions each season, but I feel like that's going to be my jam moving forward. I feel like that's going to be my thing. We'll see. Right? And the reason why I'm saying this is there is just so much pressure going into the new year that you have to leave all of the things into the, what we're now calling the old year. Like we have to leave the old habits behind. We have to leave the old emotions behind. We have to leave the old relationships behind. And like, we've literally just like hopped over to another day in the calendar, right? Like if your calendar were something that you could walk on, you literally just walked over from one square, December 31st, to another square, January 1st. Or, maybe as we're going into the next couple of days, like, yeah, you walked a few more squares into the week or into the following week. And so to expect that everything has to be different and new and better and fresh. It's sort of unrealistic and it is unnecessary pressure. And I want you to be aware of the pressure. Like you can decide that you're going to take this on and you're ready for this, right? And there is an energy of newness that's in the new year, right? There is an energy of starting over, right? And even as I'm saying this now, I'm remembering the feeling of starting the new school year. So in Jamaica, I don't know if this is a running joke in Jamaica, but in my mind, right? What I would say about Jamaica is that we have two seasons, summer and Christmas. And that's it, right? Because it's warm all year. But after the Christmas season and you enter into January, like you have new uniform, right? You might have a new book bag, new pencils, and there's this freshness that happens at the beginning of the year. And so becoming adults, we still hold that energy of things being new going into the new year. So there might be this energy and this wave that you want to ride if it works for you. If you're entering the new year with pressure and self-judgment, then it's not working for you. It's not. Because you never need to add any unnecessary pressure to yourself. It's an energy that in the long run may not serve you, right? And where this pressure comes from, it's actually from the previous year, right? So going back a couple of squares in the previous year, whether it's like weeks and months, there's, it's sort of like, let's see, it's like you end you end the previous year, you end 2021, and I would say that overall most of us end 2021 feeling as though things should have gone differently or as though we should have done better, right? The reason why this happens is because we're humans and we tend to be able to notice things going wrong much better than we're able to notice things going well. It's a part of our protection mechanism, right? If we're able to notice the things that are not going well, then we can protect ourselves from it and we can better ensure our survival, right? If you find the threat, you can weed that thing out, you can get rid of it, and you can feel safer in your existence as a human, right? So if something went poorly at work, you're going to remember that more than the moments that went well. If there was some disagreement in your relationship, you're going to remember that more than the things that are going well. If there are things about your body that you are not pleased with, you're going to notice that more than things that you're actually pleased with, right? And so we're much better at finding the flaws. We're much better at finding what didn't go well, which means that as we're ending the year, in our reflection, in our self assessment, we'll probably find the things that didn't go well more than we'll find things that did go well, right? Unless you're being super, super intentional about, perhaps looking at your calendar to remind you of the experiences that you had, or going over journal entries to remind you of what happened in the full year. Unless you're doing that, then you're probably just picking at the memories that stand out the most. And your painful memories, the disappointing ones, those are always going to stand out much more than anything positive, because we're going to remember the things that we need to solve, the things that need to no longer be threats, because they're the things that are going to come into conflict with our survival and with our sense of safety as we're in the world, right? So I'm saying all of that to say that as you've ended 2021, there might be this sense that it should have gone better or that it could have gone better, right? And with that, bring in that energy into the new year. Now, you don't think you're actually doing it. And the reason why you don't think you're actually doing it is because you've set new intentions. You've made New Year's resolutions. And even if you didn't sit and write anything on paper, you probably made some mental note about what you're going to do differently, right? And those things that you said you're going to do differently, you can always tie them back to what happened in the previous year, right? So, you know, what's an example? This thing happened at work that you didn't like, or, um, like you didn't get some recognition that you know that you deserved, then you're going to start trying to work super hard to get that going into the new year, right? There was some disagreement with this friend or with your partner. You might set the intention that either you don't have those kinds of friends anymore, or you don't have those kinds of conversations anymore, or something has to be different. And as we are building that, should I call it a foundation? No. As we are building those goals, right? As we are setting those goals of what the new year needs to be, it's on this foundation of the icky stuff that we left into the previous year, or that we think we left into the previous year, right? And I'm going to name what those emotions are. So some of them might be disappointment, it might be regret, it might be resentment. If you experience your loss in this past year, it might be that deep sense of grief. And with that deep sense of grief, there might be some shame with that. If there were pregnancy announcements around the holidays, as there often is, then there might be some jealousy there. There might be some sense of feeling less than. And so, like, all of these things are things that might have come up around the holidays or might have come up closer to the end of the year as you look back at your year, right? As you do your self assessment, right? Those emotions might have come up again because we're much better at identifying what isn't going well than what's actually going well, right? So you have all this bag of emotions, they're not resolved, they're not sorted out. You haven't come to a place of acceptance or peace. Instead, what happens, or what usually happens, is kind of like a dismissal, right? It's like, all right, that was 2021. It wasn't the best, but look at me do something better in 2022. Like, look at me start to slay 2022, right? Like, look at my new diary. Like, look at my new journal with my dates so that I can plan my year. Like, I'm saying this and I definitely have my journal. I already have my journal. I already have my fabulous calendar. I have them, right? I have these things, right? But I want to caution you against having them and not working through the things that came up in 2021. And as I say, work, it doesn't have to feel like work, it doesn't have to feel hard. But this is why it's important. It's because as you're building this beautiful structure, right, as you're mapping out what your new year is going to look like and all of the things that you're going to create and experience, under the surface of that foundation is all of the stuff that weren't dealt with, right? And another way to look at it is that those things that weren't dealt with, they actually become the fuel for what you now want to create. But it's sort of like creating fuel from waste. And I'm pretty sure that there are situations where that actually works. Like if you think of uh, people who are very good at sustainability, I'm pretty sure that, there are situations in which that works. That's not the analogy I'm going for right now. What I'm saying is that unless the jealousy is resolved, then it means that you're going to set some goal, or you may set some goal in 2022, um, to basically create some superficial outcome that would help you to feel better about the jealousy, right? And that's one example, right? So someone makes an announcement that they're pregnant, or someone has a baby, and because this person, you consider them to be like on the same, I don't know, maybe the same age group as you are, right? You might compare yourself as them having the life that you're wanting to have, right? And so the next step for you is that you're going to set some goal that supports you in feeling that you're winning, that you're thriving, right? I'm not saying that that's all bad, and we're going to continue to unpack that. So, another analogy that I could use, it's sort of like running a race, coming to the end of the race, and feeling disappointment about what happened, right? You feel disappointment about the outcome of the race. Okay. When that race is done, you start running the next race. And you start this next race with a lot of energy, right? Because you are determined that whatever failure or disappointment you experience in that previous race, it's going to be different the next time around. Like, you're going to just like smash everything out of the waters. Like, you're just going to be the best at everything. And so, yes, there's a lot of force, there's a lot of drive, there's a lot of energy going into the new year. But under the surface, behind all of that, what's really pushing you is the fear of the failure. What's really pushing you is, and I don't even want to call it failure. It's the fear of feeling that you failed, because when we unpack that, you'll learn that you actually didn't fail. You might learn that you just had an experience, but it wasn't failure, right? And so you're entering this new race with this new energy and momentum forward, but you're still holding the fear of all the other things that you didn't like that you experienced, whether it was the disappointment or the sense of loss or the grief or the jealousy or whatever it was. And so we tend to create these goals that, in a way, end up being superficial. And it isn't that they're not important goals, because they are. And it isn't that they aren't markers for the kind of progress that's important to you, because they are markers of your success and your progress. But it's that underneath it, there's stuff that still needs to be dealt with, right? And so, let's say that you decide that whatever the goal is, I don't even want to call out specific goals, because I don't want you to feel as though there's any judgment that I have on these goals. But I want you to think about this, right? The feeling of jealousy might lead to creating a goal that supports you in feeling better about yourself, right? This feeling of having failed, or your body having failed you, might lead to doing something outside of your body in order to feel better, right? And so it's sort of like seeking the external validation for something that is an internal experience. I hope that makes sense, right? And so the goal that you've set, right, the external validation that's there, of course that's important, and of course that is a part of your journey that helps to uplift you. but the internal hurt is still there. And if the internal hurt is still there, it means that once you have that external validation, it actually won't release the internal hurt, right? I hope this isn't vague, because again, I'm not going to name any examples of goals, because I don't want you to feel as though I'm judging any goals. Those goals are important. They're a part of your journey. But if there is an internal sense of failure or defeat or grief, there's nothing outside of you that's going to change that. It's like the internal healing is what's going to shift that, right? And I know that as I begin talking about internal healing, it feels as though it's going to be a lot of work, or it might feel as though it's going to be a lot of work. It's definitely ongoing work, right? It's not something that happens overnight, or in most cases, it's not. And it's not something that has to happen when you walk from one square on the calendar from December 31st to January 1st, right? It's like we don't walk through this magical portal where immediately everything's different. Or maybe it hasn't happened for me that way, right? I don't know if for other people that's what's happening, but it definitely has not happened for me that way. And so this is what I'm saying, right? I'm saying that coming out of 2021, there's stuff that we're holding. 2021 was a big effing year. I think one of my intentions is probably to curse less. 2021 was a big freaking year. It was big. And so if at the end of the year there's some stuff that you're holding, like your bag of emotions has a bunch of stuff, it means that you've lived. It means that you were awake. It means that you weren't hidden under a rock all the time. I'm pretty sure that, at some point you may have been. I know that at some points I was under a rock, right? We might have needed that just for survival, right? So if you have some stuff that feels like residue from 2021, or that feels like a whole bag of stuff from 2021, congratulations, you're human, right? As you're moving into the new year, don't immediately jump into the resolutions or the actions that are going to become external validation that things are better if the internal work and the internal resolution isn't happening, right? Because like these things take time, right? So from conversations that I've had, it's like I get the sense that we expect things to just be different, and there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves for things to be different. And so when you're holding on to the resentment or the disappointment or the fear or the anger or whatever emotion from something that happened in 2021, there's almost this like combination of shame and pressure moving into 2022 that it's still there, that you still have it. Well, shit, 2021 was a big year. There's no magical wand that anyone is waving to just make these things disappear. And so that's why I started talking about the cycles, because if it doesn't happen from the flip of the calendar or from walking on that square on your calendar from December 31st to January 1st, if everything isn't resolved by then know that you have more time. Know that you can choose the cycle in which that is resolved. And it's probably going to be ongoing work. This is the other thing that's really cool. This is the thing that's really cool. Like, your story is ongoing. Your story continues to evolve. So if there are fears or shame or any kind of feelings that you have, let's say, for example, towards your body, don't expect that at the beginning of the year, all of that has to be different. And, so what's coming up to mind is what I mentioned about the dismissal. So it's almost like, you know, so that was the body that I had, and I'm quickly going to change that. So there's this dismissal of what you would consider to be the old, right? So that was the old me, that was the me in 2021, and I'm creating the new me in 2022. So there is this pressure that things have to be different real quick, right? Because you started a new year, you started a new cycle. And instead, how you can approach this is that time just gets to continue, right? You can forget that you're starting a new cycle. And just for a moment, stay with me on this one, right? Forget that we're starting a new year. Forget that time exists. Forget that there are days and weeks and months and a freaking calendar system, right? Just pretend for a moment that time is just flowing, right? And imagine your story, and we'll use the body example. Imagine your story, where you are right now and how you feel about your body, or how you felt about your body in 2021, right? So whatever those emotions are, there might be some shame. And I would say that for, most of us, it's probably shame that's there. And there might be some comparison. There might be some jealousy, right? There might be some rejection of different parts of the body based on traumatic experiences that you've gone through, right? So that's where you are now. And imagine that as this ongoing flow of time gets to unfold, gets to be released, gets to flow, then your story gets to flow with it. Your relationship with your body gets to flow with it. So that you may have started out not even being able to look at yourself naked, right? You may have started out not even being able to do that. And perhaps as you allow yourself to be with the body and be with the story of the body, perhaps as you allow yourself to practice some tools on self-love and self-compassion, then there are things that begin to shift, right? You're able to look at yourself and smile and find appreciation. You're able to look into your eyes and find love, deep love for yourself. You're able to see the story that your body has been holding. You're able to really look at your journey and how strong and beautiful you are, and the fact that you're a miracle for being here, right? So that story with your body gets to evolve and gets to flow. And it doesn't have to happen with the flip of a calendar, right? So if you gave yourself that grace, and if you gave yourself that spaciousness, and if you removed time, then you just get to be. And that's my wish for you. With every goal that you have, with every resolution that you have for the new year, with every intention that you want to set, that's my wish for you. That you allow for it to flow versus put yourself in these strict timelines versus pressure yourself at the beginning of the new year of everything that needs to happen, right? And so I want you to create spaciousness in your experience right now. What are you holding from the previous year? Whatever you feel as though you've left, you best believe that it's still here, right? Whatever you feel as though you have put in a bag and put in a corner or buried, it's still here because your story continues. There's no like, there's no like cutoff. There's no cliff where everything ends and you somehow wake up in a new story where everything is now different. And you wouldn't want it that way either. Like, you want to see your own evolution. You want to see how things work out. You want to develop the skills that actually support you in making the shifts and making the changes that you want to make, right? You don't want to walk through a magical portal and have everything be different. Right? You want to be able to tell the story. What happened? How did it happen? Right? And so, as I mentioned about cycles, you get to choose when you want to focus on that goal, right? You get to choose, do I want to focus on this in this lunar cycle, right? Do I want to focus on this in the season of the winter, right? Do I want this to be something I focus on in the spring? You don't have to plan out your entire year and your entire future in the first couple of weeks in January. And you don't have to hold yourself in this like strict disciplinarian, what's another word? Yeah, like with all of this tension, with all of this stress, right? You don't have to be the strict parent to yourself. You can be the loving and gentle and kind parent. Whatever parenting style that you grew up with, like, you can decide how you nurture and nourish and care for yourself as you're moving into this new cycle. And you can decide if you want to disregard this new cycle. I'm not there in terms of disregarding this new cycle, but I'm not far from it, if I'm being honest. Right? So, what's happening in my experience is I'm sort of just flowing with where I am. I still need to pause and reflect on 2021, right? So, the time of this recording, we're still in 2021. I still need to pause and reflect on it. And there is this sense of ease that I have that it can happen in the first or second or third week of January, right? I do want it to happen sooner. Like, I do want it to happen sort of in the first week of January, but there is this ease that it definitely doesn't have to happen in the year of 2021. And I get to have time with it, right? Because I get to learn so much about myself from the previous year. Actually, I was there and I lived it, but I get to go back on my calendars. I get to see the meetings that I had, the places that I went, the people that I spoke to, what I presented and what I shared, what I birthed, what I created, like I get to look back at all of that and I get to pause in appreciation then that's the year that I lived, right? Because I definitely have not made time for that in previous years. I have not. I've definitely come to the end of the year like, oh yeah, I hated that. That didn't go as well. Oh man, I wish that could have been better. And I've definitely set the resolutions for the new year for things to be better. And where I am now, the space that I'm finding that I'm in is that I want to be able to flow. I want to be able to listen to my spirit. I don't want to create anything superficial outside of myself. There's no weight loss or weight gain goal. There are no body goals except being the healthiest version of myself that I can be, and that is ongoing, right? There's there are no specific goals yet, but I do have qualities that I want to embody. And it isn't qualities coming from a place of what feels like failure. It's qualities that comes from a place of what feels like the next step in my evolution, right? And so I'm going to do or I plan to do a new episode on this, but some of those qualities include self-forgiveness. It includes starting and ending the day with joy. It includes self-compassion. And like all of those are so juicy and give me so much joy. There are no metrics or of anything. There are definitely things that I want to birth in this new year, but it's not from a place of having failed in the previous year. It's because this is what I'm being called to, this is what I'm being inspired to, right? And so maybe your process can be different, but what I want for you is that you're not holding on to failure and disappointment and defeat. And if it's there, you're not ignoring it and setting up new goals that would help you to feel better about them, right? Like, I actually want you to be able to look at what feels like failure. I actually want you to feel and have the support to look at what felt like the defeat, right? And here's the benefit in doing that. Here's the benefit in pausing and looking, right? I am sure, let me just say for myself, that I am sure that when I look back at 2021, I will likely find things that I wish happened differently, right? I may find choices that I made that didn't serve me, but I get to look at that. And this is the practice that I'm going to be going through for myself, right? When I look at that, I get to hold that with self-compassion, right? I get to look at the choices or the experiences that didn't turn out the way that I wanted them to. And I get to take a closer look at what led to those choices, what led to those experiences. And I can almost guarantee you that in every single one of those situations, I was probably doing the best that I could. And I would say that it's the same for you, right? Each moment in which you feel as though, in which you felt as though you didn't do what you should have done, each moment when you took this turn and further down the road, you realize that another turn would have served you better. When you made that choice, you are making the choice with the best of your knowledge, right? You were choosing based on the information that you had in that moment, which means that it was the best choice. You were choosing with a state of mind that you were in. You were choosing with the emotions that you were working with, which means that you probably did the best you could in that moment. Now, looking back in hindsight, there might be regrets, there might be disappointment, there might be some heavy emotions. And this is where compassion comes in. It's acknowledging what were the circumstances that led to the outcome, right? What were the circumstances that led to what happened? In some cases, something was not in your control. In a lot of cases, things aren't in our control. And when things are in our control, when we do get to choose, we're choosing from the best of our ability. We're choosing using the information that we have in that moment. We're choosing in the state of mind that we're in. So if a few weeks or months after that, there's more information that you have that now causes you to feel regret, that now causes you to be holding on to grief, just hold that with compassion, knowing that you are doing the best that you could. If you feel as though you worked your butt off and you didn't get the acknowledgement or the recognition that you wanted to at the end of the year, are you holding on to anger or are you holding on to self-compassion? If someone didn't recognize you, even though you did your best, can you acknowledge that you did your best? Can you acknowledge that you gave your all? Can you celebrate yourself? Or does someone else need to celebrate you? If there was a feeling of betrayal, if there was regret and disappointment, can you hold compassion for that, for the emotions that are here, for the fact that that's the way that you feel? And these emotions didn't come out of the blue, they came out of the situation, the really challenging situation that you just went through. And can you sit with that? Can you love yourself through that? Instead of rushing into the new year to prove your worth, to prove to someone else how good you are. Can you find peace within yourself? Can you feel how good you are and not need to prove it to anyone else? So this is what I'm talking about. Being able to resolve what comes up in 2021. Being able to hold it, to sit with it, being able to come to a place of peace within yourself, so that when you start a race in 2022, it isn't a race of feeling as though you failed. It isn't a race of hustling to prove to the world that they should acknowledge you. You get to start it knowing your worth. You get to start it being wrapped up in your self-love. You get to start it with peace. And you also don't have to. You don't have to start the year with everything resolved, right? We're not walking through any magical portals. And, as I say that, there's circumstances in which we might, right? We know that there's special times of the year, like great conjunctions and other times of the year when energy shifts. But know that from moving to December 31st to January 1st, we don't have to expect that to happen, right? You get to have your story continue to flow. You get to turn a page and add something to your story and not have to have it be a whole new chapter, not have to have it be a whole new book. You get to continue your evolution in a way that feels easeful, in a way that feels graceful. I just want to pause there. You get to move into this new year with ease and with grace. You get to choose not to feel pressured. You get to choose not to feel stressed. You get to choose not to feel as though you're running against the clock. You get to decide what your cycles are. You get to decide what your rhythm is. And so, let's say, for example, that you choose a cycle for 3 months, that you decide January to March is my cycle. And in this cycle, I would like to nurture a feeling of self-love, right? All of your life is still happening. You're still working, you're still in your relationships, you're still eating your meals, trying as best you can to eat healthy meals. But you decide that in this cycle, in this 3-month period of January to March, you want to nurture self-love. And so you might decide what those practices are for nurturing self-love. Maybe it's writing affirmations and repeating them once per week. When you give yourself a beautiful bath and you hold up a face mirror to yourself while you're in the bath and you're repeating affirmations, you're speaking over your body. These beautiful affirmations that nurture this feeling of self-love, right? And then at the end of that cycle, at the end of those 3 months, see how you did, see how you're feeling, see what's shifted. If you didn't do as well as you hoped, then that's okay. What can you celebrate? What lessons have you learned? What came up as roadblocks? Because those roadblocks are also teachers, right? What support might you need to continue to nurture this feeling of self-love? Right? What can you celebrate and honor? And as we move into the next 3 months, you might decide that something has evolved, something has shifted in you, right? And so there is another goal or there's another intention that you'd like to explore. So that's one way to approach it. Another way to approach it, which might be the more traditional way, is to decide that in the cycle of this year, in this year of 2022, it feels as though the next step of your evolution could be supported by these things, right? And I've shared that for me, there are things that I'm already thinking of, right? I do want to have recordings so that, you can listen to a meditation or you can listen to an exercise, and that will support you in deepening your healing, right? So that feels like one of the next steps in my evolution, right? So you might decide that there's some things that are important to you based on the growth that you want to experience, or based on what you're feeling called to, what you're feeling guided to, based on what you keep hearing out there in the universe and it's resonating with you, right? And so at the beginning of the year, or any point at the beginning of the year, you can just proclaim that here are things that you are wanting to experience in 2022, right? And then you can assign some of these things to either months of the year or quarters of the year or whatever cadence you want to do that, and you get the support to do that. But the difference with how resolutions are typically created is that they often come from a place of having failed and needing to remedy something, right? So not from this place of what's calling you, but sort of like what you're having to run from, what you're having to fix, right? So that's another way to look at it. That's another way to approach it. Or you might decide that January is another month and you will allow yourself to be guided as the year goes on as to what's important to you and what steps you want to take to follow your guidance or follow your bliss, follow what's calling you, right? And there are different levels of freedom in all of that because this time you're choosing. You're not deciding that because we flipped calendars, everything has to be different and that you have to start all of the things in January, that you have to, start the gym membership or the weight loss program, that you have to, start, school, that you have to, whatever it is that your goals are, right? You don't have to have all of those things happen immediately because your story continues to unfold. So instead of packing on all of the pressure and all of the stuff and all of the changes that have to happen immediately, which again often comes from a place of feeling that you didn't do well in the previous year, instead of squeezing all of that into January, just decide what's calling your attention right now. Just tune into that. Decide what cycle feels right for your rhythm, right? Like I mentioned that I like the 3-month cycle. Like I like the cycle of the seasons, right? And even in December, it's sort of like I was intuitively shifting my energy. I was going inwards, and I think we do that as humans, right? So when it's in the summer and it's bright, there's more energy, there's more joyfulness, right? There's more external things that are happening because like that sun is calling us to play. In the fall, uh, there might be some turning inwards, there might be some warmth, there might be the collecting, the harvesting, the reaping. And in the winter there's a deeper turning inwarding. There's a deeper sense of turning inward that happens. There's this slowing down that happens, right? We get to focus our attention inwards, and that was happening naturally for me, so that even on social media there wasn't as much posting that I was doing. It's like I was finally following my own rhythm and not feeling as though I had to promote and market and be active every day, because I was honoring the rhythm that was showing up for me, right? And so I would encourage you to begin to tune in to what your rhythm is, because you get to begin again any day, every day, several times per day. And so you can intentionally choose the cycle, the new beginning, and the ending that feels right for you. So it might be going off of the lunar cycle, right? Whenever there's a new moon and a full moon, it might be going off of the seasons or the solstices. Just tune into what feels right for you, right? It might be dividing the years into quarters, right? And going every 3 months, this first quarter, this second quarter, and see how that feels, right? So when you decide that you take things at your own pace, how does that feel versus feeling as though in the month of January or in the first couple of days of January or the last few days of December, you have to make decisions that will make this year the best year of your life. That's a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure, right? Yes. So I think I'm going to pause there for today. I think I've said enough. And hopefully this was helpful. Yes, hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully you're feeling inspired to choose for yourself and find what works with your rhythm versus following whatever cycles we have in our society today, right? Because again, different cultures have different new years, they have different calendar systems. And the Mayan calendar, it's pretty freaking awesome if you check it out. So don't feel as though the one that we have from January to December is the one that you have to stick with. You know, obviously we work in a certain system, right? We work in this system, and so things are going to happen in January and in December. And of course, you're a part of the system, so you can participate in the system. But know that for your life, you don't have to assign that to a certain time, right? You don't have to assign that to months and when the month starts. And, you know, there's more that I'm thinking of even about age. I remember, no, I'm just going off. But I'm remembering that when I was working in advertising, I don't remember what my coworker had said to me, but it was something about age. And I said, listen, age doesn't matter because someone came up with the fact that a year has 12 months. If instead someone had decided that a year had 24 months, then I would be half my age. But someone decided that a year has 12 months, right? And so you get to decide what all of this means to you. You get to decide what your rhythm is. You get to decide when your new year starts. And there is a mentor and close friend of mine. Her new year starts on her birthday. That's when her cycle starts. And I've never really gotten that, but I get it now, right? It's like being able to say, this is my rhythm and this is the flow that I'm following because this is what works for me. And releasing the pressure and the craze of everything that feels like it needs to happen in this moment. Giving yourself the spaciousness and the time to reflect on what the previous year has been. Like, this part is so important because when you really mine, M-I-N-E, the jewels, when you're able to fully capture the lessons, and you know, sometimes they won't fully happen in this moment, it's going to be a couple of years from now and you're like, oh snap, yeah, that happened. But when you're able to reflect on the year and find appreciation and strength and find examples of your courage, really acknowledge the badass that you were, oh my gosh, then you get to move into the cycle of this new year a whole new person. You get to enter this new year with more confidence because you have shifted what could have felt like failure into something that feels like an asset, right? I mentioned that analogy earlier about finishing a race and feeling defeated. Without that celebration that happens between those two races, without acknowledging yourself and recognizing your strength, then you enter into that new race feeling like that failure and pushing yourself to overcompensate. And imagine the pause that gets to happen, the celebration, the acknowledgement, and really building your inner strength so that you're like, all right, 2022, show me what you got. I'm ready for you, right? Okay, now, obviously, I've been going on long enough. So I'm going to end here, right? Because now you can get out that journal and reflect on 2021, like really reflect on it, really celebrate it, really acknowledge yourself, right? Really find your beauty and your strength. And I am so excited for you to do this exercise. And I'm so excited for you to tune into what your own rhythm is, because you get to have more agency over your life. Like I mentioned, this is the first time that I am doing this, and I'm feeling a sense of freedom that I have never felt before moving into the new year. Like I am not holding on to any stress because I have decided that I'm doing this in my cycle. I'm doing this in my time. And things that need to happen still need to happen. My calendar is fully blocked off in the first week of January, so it's just my time to myself. But going in, well, not but, and going into the second week of January, my calendar is open, right? So that I can work with my clients from the second week of January onward. And so, I've decided that January is a month that I will be participating in this new cycle, right? However, I've also decided that my goals or my intentions, those get to build on themselves, right? I get to start the year with these qualities that I want to embrace, and I get to be open to seeing how they build on themselves, how they evolve. What else will whisper in my ear, right? That it's something that I might want to explore. I'm not holding on to things in a way that anything needs to happen or needs to happen in a certain way. There's nothing that is strict and rigid because I'm allowing for my story to unfold. And I already know that it's going to be a year with a lot of changes and a lot of transitions, right? I already have that sense of the things that are going to be shifting and evolving and being birthed and expanding. And I'm allowing for that to flow, right? And so whatever feels like it's your rhythm, whatever feels right for you, whatever from, it doesn't have to be my process, but whatever from what I have shared feels like it's something that you want to take for yourself, then yeah, do it. Right. I hope that overall you are feeling a greater sense of freedom. I hope that overall you've been reminded that you get to choose what your rhythm is, that you get to choose what your cycles are. And I hope that overall you were reminded that anything that you feel as though you have to leave in 2021, anything that was hurtful, painful, anything that brought any heavy emotions, then it gets to be a part of your story that can continue to evolve and can continue to mold. It doesn't have to immediately be okay because we're humans. We don't have an on and off switch. We can't just shut off a certain emotion and expect that right away it's over and it's gone, right? You get to evolve, and you don't want to miss that evolution. You don't want to miss that story. You don't want to not see how the changes occurred. You don't want to not learn the tools. Let me speak in the positive versus negative. You do want to see how you evolve. You do want to see how your story unfolds. You do want to learn the tools for your healing so that you can practice them over and over again, so that you can teach them to the people in your circle. Okay? All right, so I'm actually going to pause for now because that was a lot, right? That was enough. If that resonated with you, it means that you can go ahead and take some action. And of course, if there is support that you would like as you're on your journey, as you are going on your continued evolution, then I am here for that. I love that. I am all for it. You know where to find me. I am at nataliefacey.com. That's Natalee, F as in fancy, F, right? So Natalie, then FACEY.com. You can email me at hello@nataliefacey.com. And on Instagram, I am at the Birth Warriors, all one word, THEBirthWarriors, Birth Warriors. And all of those things that I just spelled out, they're also in the show notes. So grab the show notes and you'll get them. And 2022 is going to be a beautiful year. It's really going to be a beautiful year. And so if you are resonating with wanting it to be a beautiful year and you feel as though you might want some support in your evolution, in your ongoing story, then reach out. That's why I'm here. Reach out and let's see how I can support you. And in the meantime, I am sending you so much love, my friend. So much love to you. So much love. So much love. All right, have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.